inside. Meanwhile, Kai and Nada make their way into the village shrine to examine the gravestone of the local god. Since it's quite dark inside, Nada chooses to use his spiritual energy to produce some fire. But Kai quickly cautions him not to attract too much attention, as orcs could be nearby. Nada finds it odd how calm Kai remains, since most people would be shocked to witness someone conjure fire out of thin air. He starts to wonder if Kai has encountered a technique like this before, but Kai can't really admit that he too knows how to wield fire, so he simply says he heard about it in a story. Still, Nada doesn't seem entirely convinced. Back above ground, Jose approaches the house and calls out to whoever might be inside, assuring them she means no harm. But when she opens the door, all that greets her is the lifeless body of an orc. Meanwhile, Kai and Nada have successfully located the gravestone. Nada pulls out a small notebook and begins deciphering the inscriptions etched into its surface. As he works, Kai circles around to the back to ensure the area is clear, only to stumble upon a young Usel's girl collapsed on the ground. Kai and Nada carry the girl back up to the surface, where they discover a total of 3 orc corpses alongside her. Noticing such a small number, Nada concludes this couldn't have been the orc's primary force. Judging by the woman's clothes, it seems she was once the guardian bearer of this village. The others are taken aback by this revelation, since female guardian bearers like Jose are uncommon. Nada explains that this Usel's guardian bearer fought entirely on her own. By nature, Usels are physically frail. Under normal circumstances, they wouldn't stand a chance against even one orc. Yet this woman managed to slay all 3 orcs, buying time for some of her people to flee, even though it ultimately cost her own life. And knowing that other female guardian bearers are capable of achieving such incredible feats gives Jose the hope that she, too, can become strong enough to fight and defend the village. Together, they hold a small funeral to honor the fallen Usels. But it seems that the guardian bearer's godstone was taken, which likely means her land god's protection has already been passed on to someone else. Bringing up the land gods, Manso questions whether Nada discovered what he was seeking in the shrine below. However, the deity present wasn't the prophesied one. With only 2 possible routes branching from the orc-ape battleground, the presence of just 3 orcs along this path suggests that the majority of their forces must have taken the alternate path. Kai glances at the map and instantly recognizes that the route Nada mentioned heads directly toward his valley. Without hesitation, he offers to rush ahead and investigate. There's no way he can allow the orcs to breach his home. Nada finds his behavior strange, but he agrees to let go. With that, Kai dashes off at full speed. Back in the valley, Porek and the Korors have just received alarming news. A band of orcs is advancing straight toward their home. Realizing they're defenseless without Kai, Porek orders Ketchak to round up as many villagers as possible and take cover. Meanwhile, he prepares to confront the orcs alone. He knows the odds are hopeless, but as their guardian bearer, he refuses to stand by while his people are slaughtered. His only hope is to buy time, praying Kai arrives before it's too late. That night, Olha and his men move in on the guerrillas spotted near the village. To his shock, there's a whole camp of them out here, and it looks like they're getting ready to attack. His men propose regrouping with the rest of their squad and launch an attack later, but Olha refuses to delay any longer. His men attempt to hold him back, pointing out that their numbers are too few to take on all the guerrillas, but Olha pays no attention. It wouldn't be so bad if his concern was the guerrillas striking during their retreat, but Olha's real motivation for charging into battle is his desire to win Gandalf's favor. Luckily, none of the others support his reckless plan, so in the end, Olha concedes and agrees to fall back to the village, regroup, and then launch their assault on the guerrillas. Meanwhile, the other group has made camp near the ruined village, and Kai's friends are beginning to wonder whether he was able to locate the orc horde or not. They're stuck waiting until Kai comes back and informs them of the orcs' location. But it's already been a while, and they're starting to get concerned about Kai's safety. Jose grows particularly anxious, and she begins questioning whether she should have joined Kai after all. The thought even crosses her mind to chase after him, hoping to reach him in time, but the others insist she can't. Their duty is to ensure Jose's safety above everything else, and Kai would never approve of her risking herself for no purpose. Nada approaches Jose and reassures her there's no need to be so concerned. Kai is an exceptionally skilled warrior. meaning he likely won't fall out there. At this point, all they can do is have faith in Kai's abilities. Still, after saying this, Nada announces to the group that he's making his way up to the hill's peak. One of the guards asks why he's heading up there, and Nada replies that he's going to pray. That's all he can do in this situation. But the truth is, he's actually going to use a secret technique that lets him monitor Kai's movements. Somehow, Nada can't shake the suspicion that Kai understands far more about the Valley God than he's letting on. Nada sits down to meditate, and soon, 2 radiant eyeballs materialize above him. He then dispatches these floating eyes into the forest to track down Kai. Meanwhile, Kai himself is sprinting at full speed, desperate to reach the valley before time runs out. As he races forward, he spots countless orc footprints pressed into the dirt, every single one leading directly toward the valley. Suddenly, Kai catches the sound of rustling from a nearby bush. Then, just seconds later, a figure leaps out and lunges at him with a knife. Kai instantly pulls out his own blade, fully prepared to strike down his assailant, until he recognizes it's only Ketchak. Moments later, the rest of the Korers emerge, and Kai feels a wave of relief that it wasn't an orc ambush. But confusion quickly follows. Why are the Korers even here? Porrick clarifies that they detected orcs advancing toward the valley, so they came to scout their movements and, if necessary, slow them down. However, according to Kai, they didn't need to go through all of that. As the guardian bearer of the valley, protecting it is his duty. But Ketchak argues that he and the other Korers also have every right to defend the valley, since they've established their new village around it. They refuse to leave it behind. Kai is pleased to hear that the Korers will stand with him, but just at that moment, a loud noise erupts nearby. Upon investigating, Kai discovers that the orc are indeed heading their way, and to make matters worse, the orc leader notices him, meaning he has no choice but to fight. While Kai is out there putting his life on the line, Gandalf remains in the village, squandering as much of the villagers' food as possible. He slams a plate onto the ground in a show of disrespect, then announces that as an inspector, they must all treat him with the highest level of respect, or else he'll have no choice but to doubt their loyalty to the king. Elsa kneels down to pick up the pieces of the plate Gandalf shattered, but as she does, Gandalf takes a proper look at her and notices just how beautiful she is. Curious, he asks for her name. She is puzzled by Gandalf suddenly speaking to her, but she answers anyway, telling him that her name is Elsa. Gandalf then orders her to pour him a drink. She can see exactly where this is headed, and honestly, the expression on Gandalf's face makes her sick, but given his position, refusing a direct command from him isn't an option, so she's left unsure how to handle the situation. Luckily, Adelia intervenes, sliding a fresh plate of food onto Gandalf's table to divert his attention away from Elsa. She pours his drink herself, cutting off any chance for him to demand it from Elsa. Even Gandalf seems caught off guard by how smoothly he's been shut down. Later, Elsa thanks Adelia for stepping in, but Adelia brushes it off, insisting it was nothing. Abruptly, Olha and Basco return, and Olha is visibly furious that he missed the opportunity to battle the gorillas, so he shouts for someone to summon his father, urging him to assemble a bigger squad to confront them. Meanwhile, Kai's situation unfolds. An orc charges after him, but as it swings its weapon, Kai whirls around and drives his blade straight through its chest. Unfortunately, while Kai was distracted, another orc attempts to ambush him from behind. Just before the attack lands, Ketchak intercepts, burying his weapon in the orc's neck. At this point, they've eliminated a significant number of the orc forces, forcing the remaining soldiers to reconsider their assault. But then, their leader appears, moving with calm as he positions himself at the front. He then reveals his divine crest, locking eyes with Kai in a clear display of intimidation. Though Kai sees nothing particularly remarkable about it, Porrick immediately identifies the crest as belonging to one of the Rigdaros. Confused, Kai admits he doesn't understand what Rigdaros means, prompting Porrick to explain. Among Orkind, there exist 6 extraordinary warriors, each blessed by mighty land gods. These elite fighters are known as the Rigdaros, and their power far surpasses that of any ordinary guardian bearer. Kai shouts a warning for the others to keep their distance. He'll need to unleash his full strength to take down the orc leader. Nearby, Nada watches everything unfold. He already had his doubts, but now, after catching sight of Kai's divine crest, it's unmistakable proof. Kai is the one he's been searching for all along. The orc facing Kai is called a Durakan, and he's fluent in the human tongue. He mentions how unexpected it is that Kai's predecessor has fallen fallen. There hadn't been any recent rumors about the Valley God, making him hard to find. But then, one of his warriors was defeated in this area, so he chose to follow the trail, and just as he expected, it brought him straight to the new Valley God. The Valley God speaks to Kai, commanding him to kill the orc, but Kai was already intending to do just that. Without hesitation, he rushes forward and attempts to stab a Durakan, only for the orc to block the attack and counter, forcing Kai to leap back to evade the strike. Kai tries to thrust his blade into a Durakan once more, but this time, the orc effortlessly knocks him aside and mocks him, calling him weak. Kai quickly figures out that a direct confrontation with a Durakan won't work, so he shifts tactics by diving between a Durakan's legs and attempting to stab him from behind. Although the angle is perfect, a Durakan's skin proves far too tough to penetrate, causing Kai's spear to break. Still, Kai isn't out of moves. Just as a Durakan launches an attack, Kai drops low and drives the broken spear tip straight into a Durakan's side with a swift kick. At last, this manages to hurt the orc, and the Korers are thrilled because Kai could really pull off a victory here. Yet, to everyone's shock, a Durakan's injury heals in an instant. The moment he stands back up, he slams Kai down without hesitation. Ketchak wonders if every Guardian Bearer can do something like that, but Porek explains that what a Durakan just did is far from ordinary. In fact, he's beginning to fear that a Durakan might be immortal. A Durakan raises Kai into the air as the other orcs erupt in cheers, mocking him as a pitiful imitation of a god. Kai tries to break free, but with a Durakan's hand wrapped tightly around his throat. A Durakan tells him that he's going to take great pleasure in destroying everything Kai holds dear. Once he's finished with Kai, he plans to storm the valley and slatter everyone in it, but Kai won't let things end that way. Summoning every ounce of strength he has left, he grabs hold of a Durakan's arm and unleashes a burst of fire. The pain forces a Durakan to hurl Kai to the ground. Kai quickly gets back on his feet, ready to keep fighting, and it's clear the flames are having a solid effect on a Durakan, so Kai intensifies the attack, launching an even greater wave of fire at him. But this time, the flames don't touch a Durakan. He charges straight through the fire and kicks Kai back with brutal force. The others are stunned. How could he have walked through that inferno unharmed? A Durakan smiles and reveals that his god spirit shields him at all times. His divine power lets him heal from or outright negate any attack he comprehends, and now that he's seen Kai's fire trick, it's useless against him. Kai is nearly out of both options and weapons, so he draws his knife and braces himself in a defensive stance. The problem is, he has no clue what move to make next. Physical strikes are completely ineffective, and magic isn't doing much against a Durakan anymore. So all Kai can do now is hope for a miracle. He attempts to stab a Durakan in the side, but the blade breaks the moment it makes contact, leaving Kai with nothing left to try. A Durakan then strikes him down, sending Kai crashing to the ground, and it's starting to seem like he's lost the will to keep fighting. The Korers are deeply concerned, realizing that a Durakan's blessing is far too powerful for Kai to counter. Meanwhile, Nada is worried that if Kai falls here, the power of the Valley God will end up in the hands of the demi-humans. A Durakan gazes down at Kai, calling him a disgrace. Kai's mind races, desperately searching for a solution, knowing that if things continue this way, the valley and everyone inside it will be wiped out. Then, in that moment, Kai notices the rice balls Elsa prepared for him. The sight of those rice balls sparks a memory of all the extraordinary knowledge he holds. He suddenly remembers that he has one more trick up his sleeve, and it's all thanks to Elsa's gift. A Durakan stands over Kai and mockingly asks if he is ready to accept his fate, but Kai is simply planning out his attack. The power of a Durakan's god allows him to nullify the damage of any attack that he understands, but that only applies to things that people know about in this world. Kai isn't entirely sure about all these atoms and molecules flashing through his mind, but one thing is clear: neither a Durakan nor his so-called god has ever encountered them before. That means there's no way a Durakan could counter an attack from Kai's energy blade. Just as a Durakan raises his axe ready to smash Kai's skull, Kai dashes straight at him. Before a Durakan can even register what's going on, Kai slashes through the space between a Durakan's atoms with his energy blade, cutting his arm clean off. A Durakan is stunned, unable to comprehend what just happened, and the Korers are equally confused. They were certain that a Durakan's blessing made him invulnerable, but it's obvious he just lost an arm, meaning Kai must have taken a completely different approach. A Durakan can't accept that he's being defeated, so he lunges at Kai once more, but that turns out to be a terrible mistake. Kai cuts him across the chest, and within moments, a Durakan collapses to the ground, taking his final breath. Nada witnessed everything, completely stunned by what Kai just did. Not only does he wield fire magic, but he also used a type of magic Nada has never encountered before. Now, Nada knows he has to be careful. Back in the destroyed village, Manso stands watch beside Jose when, without warning, she crumples to the ground. Manso tries to figure out what's happening, until he and the rest notice the deep, ugly wound on her leg. The injury looks serious. Meanwhile, in the forest, Kai has just claimed a Durakan's Godstone, and the remaining orcs can only watch, their faces filled with complete disappointment. Yet, they understand they're no match for Kai, so they stay back, keeping their distance. Kai consumes a Durakan's Godstone, and since a Durakan's god was immensely powerful, the energy Kai gains from the stone is extraordinary. His power starts surging outward, so intense that it sends all the orcs fleeing in fear, and it's a good thing they ran off because a moment later, he collapses to the ground, knocked unconscious by the overwhelming surge of new energy, and Porek has no idea what's going on. After some time, Kai regains consciousness, but he can't recall much of what took place. Curious, he turns to the Korers for answers. Yet, they're just as puzzled as he is, since everything went blurry after a sudden gust of wind blew through the area right when Kai consumed a Durakan's Godstone. Porek suspects the cause may lie in the overwhelming power of a Durakan's land god. He thinks that when Kai absorbed a Durakan's strength, it might have provoked the deity. That strong gust of wind was probably the land god's furious scream, but Kai never imagined that a god's power could trigger something so intense. Now, he finds himself unsure of how to handle the immense strength he's acquired. For the time being, he makes his way down to the stream to rinse the blood from his clothes. After finishing that, he turns to Porek and asks if he noticed anything unusual during the battle. Kai had been too focused to catch all the details, but he couldn't shake the feeling that someone had been observing him. Porek sensed it as well, though he chose to disregard it since there didn't seem to be any hostility. Still, the fact that someone had their eyes on Kai remains unsettling. Kai is ready to return to the others now, so he says his goodbyes. But before setting off, he pauses for a quick lunch. He pulls out the rice balls Elsa prepared for him, and it strikes him that he'll have to find a way to thank her once he's back. Without these, he might not have made it. They might have saved his life. Kai finally returns to the group, and the moment Manso sees him, he alerts Kai that something's wrong with Jose. Without hesitation, Kai hurries over to her and spots the strange mark on her leg, though he has no idea what could have left it. Just then, Nada arrives and mentions that he's seen this mark before, but instead of explaining right away, he first questions Kai about what happened with the orcs he was pursuing. Kai attempts to dismiss Nada's question, insisting they should concentrate on helping Jose first, but Nada presses for an answer, refusing to let it go. Kai lies, claiming he tracked down the orcs only to discover someone else had already killed them. Nada clearly sees through his lie, but exposing Kai out here wouldn't benefit him. Instead, he suggests that if the orcs are truly dealt with, they should focus on getting Jose back to the village for proper treatment. They set off without delay. As they're transporting Jose, Nada notices something suspicious. Kai's shirt is stained with blood. He points this out, remarking how strange it is since Kai insisted he didn't fight the orcs. Kai quickly fabricates an explanation, claiming he must have brushed against one of the dead orcs by accident. The group finally makes it back to the village, but upon arriving, they realize it was assaulted during their absence. As Kai steps through the gates, he spots the troop leader Basco holding one of the wounded men in his arms. Kai approaches him to find out what exactly took place. Basco tells him that the village came under attack from an overwhelming number of guerrillas, but thanks to Vezin's intervention, they managed to push them back. Even so, as is clearly visible, the village suffered heavy damage from the assault. Kai dashes to the refuge area, where everyone who lost their homes has gathered, and calls out for Elsa, praying she survived the attack. To his relief, Elsa's voice echoes from down the hall. she's still alive, and Kai is overjoyed to see her safe and sound. Meanwhile, the group takes Jose to Vezin, who is stunned to see that even Jose has been afflicted. He explains that Olha is showing the same symptoms and admits he understands the cause behind it. At the same time, a scouting party was dispatched to gather information on the guerrillas. To their terror, they find that the guerrillas have summoned reinforcements and are getting ready to launch another assault. Meanwhile, in the village, Kai assists Elsa in tending to the injured villagers, still struggling to accept how severely the village was destroyed. When the attack first began, Elsa had fled here with her mother and younger sister. She had been terrified, but just remembering Kai's face gave her a sense of safety. The moment Elsa says this, Grandma realizes she and Kai are about to share a special moment, so she quietly slips away. Kai turns to Elsa and begins to express his gratitude for the rice balls she prepared for him. However, before he can finish speaking, Manso suddenly appears and informs him that Vezin needs to see him right away. Kai makes his way to Vezin's office to deliver his mission report. Vezin expresses relief that the orcs have been neutralized as a threat, though he reminds Kai that the guerrilla problem still remains. Kai inquires about Jose and Olha's condition. Vezin explains that the guerrillas have cursed the land gods bound to Jose and Olha. It was a calculated move to eliminate the village's most powerful defenders. He adds that according to their earlier reconnaissance, the guerrillas appear to be mobilizing for another assault soon. Nada explains to Vezin that once the curse is removed, they'll regain their ability to fight. Because of this, he requests Kai to join him in breaking the curse. The reason he specifically chooses Kai is his strong belief in Kai's power. Vezin, too, has confidence in Kai, so he gives him his blessings and informs him that his journey will take him to Elg, to Olha's god, and then to Edda, to Jose's god. The fate of Lag village depends entirely on the success of this mission, but Vezin is putting his trust in Kai, and for Jose's sake, Kai vows to give it everything he's got. He and Nada then step out of Vezin's office, but as they make their way down the stairs, they hear Gandalf shouting. Even in the middle of this crisis, Kai can't help but wish Gandalf would actually contribute, especially since he's a guardian bearer, but considering how useless Gandalf tends to be, Nada doubts he'll be any help at all. In any case, Nada has a few things to get ready for the journey, so he tells Kai to meet him at the north gate once he's prepared. Meanwhile, Kai pays Elsa a visit and at last expresses his gratitude for the rice balls she prepared. Elsa is happy that the meal supported Kai during his mission, but he informs her he must set off on another journey today. Still, he reassures her that he'll return as quickly as he can, and when he does, he vows to take Elsa to a truly special place. Elsa takes Kai's hands and tells him she'll eagerly await his return. Yet, as Kai walks away, she can't help but already feel his absence. Kai finally reunites with Nada at the north gate, where Nada appears to have been given a bag by Vezin to aid in breaking the curse. Meanwhile, Jose and Olha continue to suffer greatly from the curse's effects. After a few hours, Kai and Nada have just reached the village of Elg, where the land god of Olha is located. If the guerrillas deliberately went through the trouble of cursing the gravestone in this place, they must be keeping watch to prevent anyone from lifting the curse. Nada announces that he'll scout ahead and immediately activates his surveillance technique. Kai realizes it's the same presence he detected during his fight with the Durekan. Nada explains that this power is known as 100 Eyes, a secret art he mastered at the monastery, granting him the ability to observe anything, no matter the distance. After scanning the area, Nada reports that just 5 guerrillas are stationed at the gravestone, meaning the 2 of them should have no trouble dealing with them. The moment they reach the gravestone, Kai leaps into action, slashing one guerrilla's throat before driving his blade into 2 more. He then moves to support Nada, only to find his companion more than capable of holding his own in battle. Kai is surprised by Nada's impressive skill, but in the heat of combat, he doesn't notice that his divine crest has been exposed. However, Nada had already suspected its existence, and seeing it, he drops to one knee. He pleads with Kai to wield the power of the savage god for the sake of the unified kingdom of men. Kai tells Nada there is no need for him to bow his head, but Kai really doesn't want to talk about this right now, so he says they should take care of the curse on Olha's land god. Nada agrees to drop the topic for now, so he begins cleaning up the gravestone while Kai stands guard. As Nada cleans up, he elaborates to Kai on why the unified kingdom desperately requires a new, mighty god. It isn't merely about strengthening the realm. The human kingdom is actually in steady decline year after year. clear, and the root of this decay lies with figures like Gandalf. The kingdom's most formidable guardian bearers have grown corrupted by their own authority and the comforts it affords them. In their complacency, they've neglected their sacred responsibilities, and this negligence has gravely weakened the gods who uphold the king's reign. Without intervention, Nada warns, this downward spiral will only worsen. Nada explains that if the kingdom were still as strong as it once was, then reinforcements could have been deployed to assist during disasters like this. But with things as they are now, the number of tragedies will continue to rise year after year, because their current roster of gods can't support the king anymore. That's why Nada has been looking for a new god to strengthen the kingdom, even if it means tearing down the current hierarchy. Nada starts performing the curse-breaking ritual, prompting Kai to ask about the liquid he's pouring over the gravestone. Nada clarifies that the deity of Elg Village serves the Lag's god, meaning Vezin's blood, as the guardian bearer, can neutralize the curse. Once the blood fully absorbs into the stone, Nada announces the ritual's success. Now, he says, they must hurry to Ida Village to repeat the process and free Jose from his affliction. As the journey continues, Nada launches into another speech about the shifting state of the world. He highlights how the gorillas, in their desperation, were even ready to undermine the land gods and throw the land into chaos just to secure victory. Kai questions what Nada means by desperate. Nada then clarifies, based on his research, that the gorilla nation is confronting a massive threat, one so severe it might drive them from their homeland. That's why they're invading human territory, to seek a new place to settle. It's the same with the orcs that Kai killed yesterday because they were looking for a new god in order to face the being that is threatening them in the north. With all the changes happening, Nada is worried that the kingdom of humans might be destroyed as a result, so he asks Kai to lend the power of his god to the kingdom of humans and save millions of lives. Kai finds Nada's story quite convincing. However, out of nowhere, the Valley God starts urging him to kill Nada, leaving Kai uncertain about whether he can truly trust him. He asks Nada for a bit of time to think things over, and while Nada agrees to wait, he makes it clear that he expects an answer once they've lifted the curse on Hosea's land god. Meanwhile, back in the village, the mark on Alha's body has begun receding thanks to the efforts of Kai and Nada, and if Alha regains enough strength to join the fight, then the villagers of Lag have a good chance of surviving. Kai and Nada finally reach the gravestone in Edda after defeating the gorillas protecting it. Nada starts working to break the curse. Meanwhile, Kai steps outside for a walk, reflecting on the power he now holds. He's been unsure about how to use it. If it's for a noble purpose, like saving lives, perhaps that's the right path. Still, he can't figure out why the Valley God was so furious with Nada. At that moment, Nada steps outside and questions whether Kai has reached a decision yet, but Kai remains uncertain. Nada attempts to convince him, explaining that by joining the kingdom's mausoleum, he would earn the God King's favor, and with it, a tremendous boost in power, enough that rescuing the people of Lag would be effortless, especially those Kai holds dear, like Elsa. That makes sense. But Kai also feels responsible for people beyond the village, including the Korers, who have sworn their loyalty to him. Yet Nada insists that he must leave the Korers behind. Kai demands an explanation. Nada then clarifies, the kingdom's mausoleum refuses to accept lowly demi-humans, regardless of their peaceful nature. Humans stand above all, and mingling with other species is simply unthinkable. Kai insists that the Korers are anything but lowly, but Nada brushes off his words. Instead, he urges Kai to dedicate his power solely to humanity, no one else. But if those are the kingdom's conditions, Kai declares he has no choice but to decline. As a guardian bearer, his duty is to defend his land god and all who dwell within its domain. Abandoning the Korers is simply not an option. Nada questions whether anything might sway Kai's decision, but Kai remains unwavering in his response. To Nada's surprise, he simply smiles and states that if Kai won't accept the terms, he'll have to let go of recruiting him. For now, he even assures Kai that he'll come up with an excuse to keep his superiors from pursuing him further. Kai genuinely thinks he's being honest, but just moments later, Nada betrays him, stabbing him in the back, and now Kai is bleeding a lot. Watch this next video on screen and subscribe to not miss next part.